At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve. It's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Good evening. Welcome to Unveiled, where all conversations are safe, revealing, and uncuffed. Tonight's show is partnered with Sage and Soil, Jenn Chavez Photography, and sponsored by WSBI LLC, your resource for success podcast. Here are your hosts, Carmine and Kim, and Chris and Jenn. And what are we revealing tonight?
Well, Jenn and crew, today we have a topic of what we learned or didn't learn from our parents and our grandparents. An unusual topic to pick, but we span several generations here. And what's really nice is that we'll have different points of view.
I agree. Hi, guys.
Hello. Hello.
Kim.
All right.
I love your glasses, Kim.
Oh, that's just another pair. Different pair. Thank you.
Her podcast pair.
These are computer glasses, so you can actually see what I'm looking at.
I love you.
Thank you.
But they're very pretty. I just had to let you know.
Thank you. So,
see, my parents taught me to pay compliments when you like something. Checkbox for mom.
And when you don't like something,
keep your mouth shut.
There you go.
All right, so Jenn, you're the host of today's show, so
yay me.
Go for it. So
I really find this conversation, this topic, interesting. Right? To Carmine's point, we do span multiple generations. And we have all learned something from our parents, from our grandparents, depending on even when they grew up, whether you're through the Depression, the wars, whatever it might be. And having lost my mother at such a young age, I consolidate and condense everything I learned from her in what I consider in my mind like a 2-block period. As a child and as an early teen, right? Which are very different things you're going to learn from a parent as if you were a 20-some-odd-year-old person, right? So we just joked about paying somebody a compliment.
Right.
I don't think enough people give compliments anymore. And that's sad to me because there's no harm and no hurt in randomly telling somebody you like something about them, or that they look good, or that they're intelligent, even more importantly. So that was something
or a box
profound.
Of rocks.
You can't tell people they're dumb as a box of rocks.
I didn't say dumb as a box of rocks. You said paying them a compliment, or they're a box of rocks.
I love you. I do.
Box of rocks.
You are just my favorite.
Well, if you want to kind of bring that to full circle when it comes to talking about compliments, like you said, we were raised to pay people compliments, and whether that compliment was a negative connotation or a positive one, and whether you agree with it or not, that's what you were told. It was a kind of okay thing, right?
Yep.
And today, even if you pay a positive compliment, people take it in a different context. They literally act like it's a bad thing to do, and they'll push it. Well, what do you mean by that?
It's just, that goes back, that goes to the same theory of opening and closing doors, and I think
we've talked about
opening and closing doors, whether for your significant other or for just someone in general. There have been many people like, "Why are you holding the door for me?" It's like, because it's what I was taught. It's called respect. Come on now.
Right. Or something as simple as, I'm still from that era of, yes, ma'am, no, sir, thank you, ma'am, thank you, sir. Same. Okay, and they'll look at you like you're crazy when you say that. But this is who I am. This is how I've been raised. And till this day, even though I'm almost 60 years old, that's how I talk, right? That's just
100%.
That is just who we are. And I don't think that's taught that much in this day and age. People still look at that as something being negative. Oh, that's just old fashioned. Why are you calling me ma'am? That makes me sound older. Are you talking to my mother?
But it's also regional, right?
It's
a regional thing because I would do it when I
Right?
first moved to Virginia, and he used to call me ma'am, and I was going to throat punch him one day. I was like, what? No, you don't do that. In New York, you don't ma'am. You just don't.
See, Midwest,
in the
Midwestern,
South
I
you
guess.
do.
You know, that's the thing.
You speak of the negative connotations as well. What is it? Bless your heart? I never heard that until I moved to Virginia. And I'm trying to remember who it was. She and whoever this woman was, and it'll come to me eventually. We were having a conversation. She's like, yeah, that's not nice when somebody says. I'm like, but they said bless your heart. And, yeah, no, sweetheart.
It's the tone. Bless your heart.
Like, oh,
Right.
I'm a moron. Cool. But, even generationally, like, so Chris being the youngest out of all of us, things that his parents taught him would be greatly different, I would venture to say, than maybe what Carmine learned from his parents. Just based on generation and what was going on in the times.
So I too lost my mom at a very early age. So the things that I can remember that I learned from her are totally different than how I react today, because it was always, you had a structure, and I do have structure, but I mean, it was, you wake up, you make your bed, you go to school, you come home, you do your homework, leave the house so she could take a nap, and then come back for dinner, right? It was that structure,
Yes.
which I think was great, but it also made me think of the things that I really wanted to do. Like, one of the things that I wrote down here is to, be honest, be polite. Those are things that really the things I learned from my parents,
Right.
both my father and my mom. But, be honest to the point where you're not hurting anyone, because sometimes people are very blunt.
Very true.
And that, to me, they weren't raised right, because you can't just say, oh, you look like shit today, right? It's like, you're honest, but don't say that to someone, You say the nice thing. You look nice today, even though you're thinking.
Did you look in the mirror today? Before you walked out the door?
Somebody
Right?
shook that box of rocks.
So
I'm getting you a shirt with a picture of a box with rocks in it, just to be clear.
Every veteran would get that.
But
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now. And support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
the other things that I look at, the things I learned that didn't make me what I am today, are the things like don't be foolish. Don't look like a clown and stuff like that. And to me, sometimes I react like a clown because I think that laughter is a good thing to get people to understand some things, but also to be relational stuff. So sometimes I'm foolish to the degree where I break the mold or break the mood, and I think that I got from my Catholic school upbringing, where we couldn't, speak when you're spoken to. You raise your hand when you want to talk or go to the bathroom. It was that those are the things that I think, and maybe you can speak to that, to the military background of things like that. But I didn't learn anything from that other than you need to be yourself sometimes instead of your parents. It's okay to be a different person than you were at 8, 13, 16, 18, and you have to learn from your mistakes, not their mistakes. Right?
I agree.
I think so. Going off of the military thing, and Kim knows this too. It's it's a different structure. Like, you're broken down to the lowest life form and then built back up. But I think one thing that, not even one, there's been many things to this day, and I know my father will never listen to this, so I can say all these things that he instilled in my brother and I, of one, being an individual, be your own person, and two, the hard work ethic.
Yep.
And I say that because, just real quick story of basic training, Fort Benning, Georgia. We had a kid, and we were doing what we like to call area beautification, which is basically grass cutting in the Army. And he walks up to me, he has this push broom, and this guy's like, I don't know how to use this. I was like, what? You don't use a push broom? And all I can do is I just flashback every time I hear that, talk about that story, is my father making us sweep the driveway after we mowed the grass. And it was done a particular way. And if you didn't do it that particular way, you went back and you did it again. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because you're learning from that stuff, from those things. And you're developing a strong work ethic of making sure it's done right the first time, and making sure that dad doesn't get mad because you didn't do it his way. So
right. And I think that the thing too with our parents, even though we all they want us to be ourselves, so we learn that we have to be ourselves, but it's a foundation. Everybody has a foundation that they provide, whether we agreed with it or not, right? I was telling Carmine one day that I always used to think my parents were crazy. I'm like, why do we have to be different kids in the summertime? So in the summertime, we couldn't go and have vacation and hang out, like the rest of the kids. Our vacation was, you're going to sit in here and you're going to type on this typewriter when they would buy us the typewriter, remember the old-fashioned typewriters? And we had to read, we had to do math. We were in school all year.
You're homeschooled, essentially.
If you want to call it back that, we didn't understand that back then. All we cared about was like, why can't we go out and play? We didn't understand what they were trying to prepare us for. But then, of course, once we got into high school, it made more sense, because after in high school, we were able to go work at the Rock Island Arsenal all through high school as students. That was a part of our grading system. Instead of going to class, they had a program where we could actually go to the Arsenal, work there all day. We actually got paid an actual salary. And it was because of those things that my parents did at that time that we thought that they were crazy, that they made us do every day in the summer. We couldn't rip and run the streets and hang out with the other kids. We were sitting there. They set a foundation that we just were like, no, this just isn't normal. You guys are not normal parents. Why are you making us do this? It was trying to get us to groom us to realize that, like you're saying, hard work, that ethic, they were setting a standard that helped me till this day. Sure. It was that foundation. I didn't know this is the direction of my life that I would be going through. Just the basic of understanding how to type back then. Knowing that, hey, I could type 70 words per minute easily before I even got out of high school. So it's just realizing that even though we don't always want to feel like want to be our parents, but we still take some of those things that we've learned and we instill them within ourselves, and we also will instill them within our children, right? Mm-hmm. It's those things that we it's that basic foundation, and not. I would think that not every child or has a foundation to build from, a platform to build from. So you take some of those things, you move them forward, and even with my son, there's a lot of things that I utilize that I've got from my parents, and there's some things that I didn't.
100%.
You know, my parents I thought were strict, but they were fair. You know, and I think some of these kids today could use some of that.
Well, it's like you are reading my ESPN right now. So,
ESPN.
we have Jen and I have a really good friend.
Mm-hmm.
She's our coach, and really good friend, I guess, too. Like she teaches CrossFit Kids class, and she has this one kid that just comes in and she says he absolutely hates going there. Absolutely hates it. Hates being there.
Mm-hmm.
But the parents go there, right? The parents work out there
right.
also. And it's... I feel when nowadays, in this day and age, that a lot of parents are negating the parenting aspect by forcing their children to do stuff that they don't want to, rather than teaching them stuff that they should be. So it's like, your kid doesn't want to work out? Cool, great, grand, wonderful. Just because you do it doesn't mean the kid likes it.
Right.
Ask the kid what he wants to do, but let him or her know up front, sitting on your butt in the house is not a viable option.
That's right.
So that goes back to finishing what you start with, which was a great lesson learned. And I would say I learned that from my father more than my mother, just because of her passing. That is something that I did with Amanda also, was you don't have to like going to karate. You don't have to like going to gymnastics, but you're going to finish the commitment.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You made to it, and then if you don't want to do it again, you don't have to. However, sitting on your butt in your bed for hours and hours is not going to work. It is not something that we're going to do.
That's right.
You will do something. To counterbalance the physical, there's also the mental aspect, right? You need to be learning. To your point, both my parents were educators. My entire family, my grandmother, she was a principal of a school in Newark, New Jersey. My aunts, all of them, they all were in the education system. And so in the summer, we would go to the beach, and it was great. And please believe, there were packets and things for me to do, whether, not even a joke. There were times where it was, okay, pick 5 words out of the dictionary. Tell me about those 5 words. Did it help me with my vocabulary? Absolutely. When I'm not swearing, I have a wonderful vocabulary. That is something I learned from my parents also, cursing.
Exactly.
So you had an advantage there because, in essence, all parents are educators, right? To some degree.
100%.
Very good, yeah.
And they don't have to have a PhD or doctorate or something on paper that says they've achieved that. But they are teaching, and all of our parents were educators. Whether they taught you things that said you're crazy, I'm not doing this, But for the most part, I was observant of the fact that, my parents really didn't push me to do things that I didn't want to do, but they encouraged me to do it. So it was a different type of...
Yeah, that was the same thing. Mm-hmm. Now that I think about it, my parents never really pushed us to do anything. We said we wanted to do this and do this, and then after a few times, I was like, okay, I really didn't like that. I wanted to do something else.
Yeah, the one thing, it was always, hey, if you don't like doing it or you feel threatened or whatever, you just don't do it. It was they encouraged you, but they didn't push like some of the parents in today's society. Right. They push a sport or they push an activity. Learn a guitar, learn this, play the piano. It's like, I don't want to play the piano. I want to play the tuba, right? So it's not your choice. But from those things, you learn what you adamantly don't want to do and what you enjoy. And unless you have the ability, unless you have this forethought that says, I'm going to hate it, which most of us do because it's like, my parents told me I should do this. You try it and you say, I like this, right? So there are educators because they're pushing us to say, hey, it's not so, you think it's bad now, give it a try. If you really don't like it, just drop it. And that was my upbringing.
Mm-hmm. So you know that song, I think it's Cat Stevens that sang it, Cats in the Cradle, and the Silver Spoon, right? When you listen to the words of the song and you hear the child repeating the actions and behaviors of the father, I think that is also part of this conversation, right? So do you, continue what was taught, or do you break away from what you were taught? Truth in lending, there were lots of things I didn't take into my own parental experiences because I didn't agree with it, or it just fell short of where I put my bar for raising a child. And some were good, some were like, oh crap, I should have done that.
Right.
Lesson learned also. Where I would like to think that when we look back, and not just our parents, our grandparents also, like, I love my grandmothers. They were amazing women, strong women, intelligent women, very different women. My father's mother, may she rest in peace, was a stay-at-home mom, and she took care of house and home, and she had a very big responsibility with all of my father and his siblings and my grandfather and the businesses that they ran. And then the flip side, my mother's mother, who, again, we're going back into the 1940s, her husband left. He moved out to Las Vegas, Nevada, as I recall the stories. And my grandmother raised my mother and her sister as a single mom. Never remarried. My great-grandmother lived with them. And that family mentality of having the elders at home, that was a huge impact to me because I took that when my father became ill. I mean, even before he became ill, my father moved in with me. Yes, you will live here. This is not an option. You're not going off into the sunset to, die on the vine.
Right.
So I think that grandparents also add value. And my father had a huge impact on Amanda, for sure.
Yeah. My grandparents were very hard valued. Not hard valued, I should say. There wasn't a lot of value in certain things. Yeah. Because we know the story of my grandparents on my dad's side. There was a lot of alcohol in that family. There was a lot of abuse. And then on the other side, I never met my grandfather from my mother's side because he died prior to me even being born. And I never saw my grandmother with another man. And my aunt, I haven't talked to my aunt since 1997 because there was a whole family drama thing. So there wasn't really a lot of value in that aspect. I think like my ethics and my values came from my parents, just from the amount of like hard work that they did. And I think that's the thing that was instilled in me is like, I saw my dad 3:30 every day for 42 years got up, went to a job, home by 2:30, right? Took us to baseball, took us to karate, took us to football, took us to swimming, took us on vacation, took us to like the Disney cruise when it first came out when we were little, blah blah blah, those things. And then just to hear parents nowadays like, I don't have time to take my kids to soccer or football practice. It's like,
yeah, because I'm too busy. I got to work. I got to do this. Right? Exactly.
I got to play on my phone. I got to be on social media. It's like, you had those kids for a reason.
Yep.
You need to show them the value of life. And I think that's my biggest thing from my parents, not necessarily my grandparents, but that they instilled the hard work ethic and the value of like being able to work to, I guess, reap the benefits that you sow, I guess. Best way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, even with I think about my grandparents. So on my dad's side, my grandmother had 19 kids.
God bless.
Yeah. So,
your sister loses.
I know. I was just gonna say.
Everybody else pretty much loses, and
Wow.
she was a single parent majority of the time and never got to meet my grandfather. And,
Were you on twins? I'm sorry.
There was this one set of twins,
okay.
And so one died, so there was 18 that she ended up raising.
That's a big tree.
And she wasn't, didn't have any education. She started having kids. I think we figured around 13. Wow. Because her family, was in the slavery time, so they didn't want her there. So pushed her out. There's your first husband.
God bless.
Got to get you out of here. But she only had two husbands out of, two husbands and having all those kids. But it was great to see that even having as poor as they were, all those kids became something or somebody. There's always a few that didn't land right, but at the end of the day, for her not even having the education, she had so much wisdom, and she was in my opinion was my favorite, because there was something about her that it wasn't like you said about having the education, but she was educated enough to know how to take care of her children, how to prepare them for the life that they didn't even know they were going to have. And so everything that I see within my dad, I see in her. The strength, the guidance, I look at him and think that, and the resilience that here you come from, this strong, wonderful woman. Here you've been in business for 57 years. He didn't know what his life was going to be like when you have that many kids. So at 14, he went on his own to get, because he knew I needed to have something better for myself. And one day,
was he the oldest?
No. He's not the oldest. I think he's fourth to the oldest, but he is one of the. There's only three of the guys left on the family, and then a couple more of the girls left. But a few of the girls left. So it's the process of what they went through, and having to grow up and see where they lived in the single trailer. Now you can imagine a single trailer of 19 kids, poorest family in the whole Quad City area. Wow. Considered the poorest family. But at one time.
And
so that resilience.
Yeah.
It's
very funny to think about like everything that we're talking about right now about, things that we did not learn from our parents, or things that we didn't learn from our parents. Is something that we did learn from our parents and grandparents is resiliency. Mm-hmm. And that was probably never talked about, at least when I was growing up. Nobody ever talked to us about resiliency. My dad's version of resiliency is like, get up, keep going. And
right.
Never use the word resiliency.
Well, I loved it because my parents always made sure it's like we would take these long drives on Sundays, and it was always great because my parents would show us and made us grateful for what we had and how hard they worked. Even with my mom, and I love my grandmother and my step grandfather, and even watching her, my grandmother and grandfather ran business for 30 years. So both sides, they had this work ethic, and she raised 6 kids, and my grandpa helped her raise her kids, and to watch where they come from nothing and into something, and to see what they developed. But it was just amazing for them to show us, hey, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what we do every day. Getting up every day, working hard, building, giving you what you want. And every time we thought that we were, like I said, we thought they were doing something, like, y'all ain't normal. Okay? You just ain't normal.
That's the thing, too. Is like, no, when you're saying that's not normal, like, whenever we're about to head down and see my parents, and at the end of May. But my parents are 70 daggum years old. For the first time in my life, my dad said, I had to call somebody to do this. I was like, what is wrong? Is there something wrong? Are you physically okay? Are you mentally okay? Is something wrong? Because normally it's like, the weed eater is broken and I have to fix it. Like, what? All right, Dad, whatever.
Right.
Or I'm going to tear apart my whole bathroom and I'm going to redo it. Like everything down to recessed medicine cabinet so that the mirrors slide. It's built in. He redid the floor. It's like, bro, you're 7 years old. Take a break, man.
Right. But they're that work ethic. But and I watch my mom and dad. They both still have that hard headedness about I'm going to do this something. But now Dad, I can say, has slowed down a little bit more, where he's not going to just get up and fix something. No, I'm going to hire. I ain't doing that no more. But when you think about what they used to do, like you were talking, how my parents never missed a recital, or when my brother was playing in sports, there was never those excuses of I'm too busy. They both worked. He was running the business. Mom was working full time. The whole 9 yards. It was never any excuse of why we can't do anything. And I'm grateful. I had both my parents. So it's like you said. I listened to your guys' stories and not be having both your parents. And you sit back and you hear other people with their stories not having both the parents, and then you sit back and think, wow, you don't realize how thankful and grateful that you are that you do have parents. And when I hear other kids whine about, well, my mom, dad won't give me my dollars, or you hear today these stories.
Won't give me an iPhone.
Well, the stories that you hear today that a child is suing their parent because they didn't get the we was reading about one, I think a month ago. This child was suing his dad because he didn't get the sports car that he said he was promised to get for graduating in, I think, high school. I was like, if I could have reached through that phone and touched that child, I would have reached through the phone and touched him. Even the judge was sitting there like, are you kidding me? Are we really in court for this? But it just proves how spoiled these kids are today, and how parents don't want to be parents. They're too busy being their friends.
Well, where did they learn it? So it's a great shift in what we're talking about, because today the things we're talking about, what we learned from our parents and who we've become, is different today. And I'm not saying it's totally different, because there are parents just like us, but to get to that point where you feel entitled to something.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Yes.
Is where did they learn that?
So I have opinions on that. Because it's not necessarily that they learned it because there was that expectation at home, like, oh, look, I'll be the first to tell you, I absolutely made sure my daughter did not have to want for anything. However, there were things that had to occur in order for that to be maintained. You damn well better get good grades. You damn well better be participating in activities. You damn well better be respectful. Your grandfather needs something, you will be there to help him. Now, these are things that happen. Of course, let's go back. So she's 26. So let's go back 15 years ago, or whenever it was, with the birthing of Facebook and all the rest of it. We're exposing children to more earlier. Mm-hmm. Kids are learning a lot. And I joked about it, and I remember this conversation very, very vividly that I had with two of my girlfriends at the time, and I was like, yeah, it's like when we were little and we learned about sex from our older siblings, because they were all talking about, sex, and you go home and all of a sudden now you know what's going on when those winky conversations are happening. It's the same thing for our kids. They hear about these what do they call that show? Sweet 16, something massive Sweet 16, My Super Sweet 16. You can't live up to those expectations.
Mm-hmm. But that's the problem, is that there's a lot of influences
outside of you, right?
That, hey, this is what I want in my life. Like, you can get paid to be an influencer. Why? Like, you're not teaching anybody anything because you don't have the experience. You don't have the
We see it a different way. We see it as a spoiled brat, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
So,
but is there value being taught? Or is that just a substitute for our kids turning around and being, well, let me tell you what I learned from my parents? Mm-hmm. And no parent is perfect. Let's be honest. No, I know I made my fair share
but it's not about perfection.
But it's about acceptance. So are you willing to accept that your parents are not perfect? And
mine were not perfect.
Mine definitely weren't.
But they were as perfect as they could be given their education,
about mine,
and their financial status.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And look, I'll be the first one to admit I babied my son to give him the things that he wanted, right? Whether it's to be sitting in a line at Toys R Us for the newest Power Rangers that came out, right? For, the night before, and tenting out over there, right? Stupid things like that, or going with him and taking his friends to concerts all the time. Mm-hmm. But I enjoyed doing that. Exactly. It wasn't like a chore or anything like that. And sometimes it's those little things. It's not the freaking car, right?
No, but
that's what's expected. And my son never expected a car. He'd like it, but he never expected it. And we all want to give our kids more than what we had. And that sometimes is a lofty thing in today's environment, because you have those influencers, like you said, that this is what I'm getting, right? Look at me, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're getting coddled, and you get gifts bestowed upon them that they didn't earn, but they feel they're entitled for it.
Right,
what are we teaching our kids today? Because when they go for a job, they're going to be
exactly.
They're going to be thinking they're entitled to something.
It's kind of like what's been going on this week with the NFL draft. There was a particular individual who everybody's like, oh, he didn't get drafted in the first round, didn't get drafted in the second round, the third, the fourth, the fifth. Hey, guess what?
And we stop at 274 or something like that, right?
And guess what? You want to know the reason why? Because your dad's an idiot. And you're playing in your dad's shadow, and you're really not that good, even though you got a Heisman Trophy winner, just because of your name. Okay, so that right there is the types of things that we're talking about. Like, people see things, or they're living up under their parents' name rather than trying to be their own selves.
Well, and I agree to some of what you're saying for other people, but then also you got to realize it's not just him doing it, it's society, it's the system.
The system.
The system puts these kids under too much pressure, and he's not the only. I know you're talking about, and he's not the only one who's under that type of pressure. It's all these kids that when they have a famous parent, or even if you're not famous, the pressure. I deal with it when I go home, because my dad's been known for almost 60 years in the community.
Exactly.
I can't even, before I even get home, people know I'm coming home. I almost hate going home because I can't have any peace to be with my family and to be with my friends.
And I saw...
So, so it's that pressure that you don't have to do anything. And if you're trying to build something for yourself, or people think, they don't want to see you be successful. They want to see you fail.
Which, again, let me pay you that compliment. Why can't you root for somebody's success vice their failures?
Why can't you root for their failures if they come back from it?
Right.
What?
Why can't you root for failure if they come back from it? Like you fell down. Like and that I think that's one thing like I got from my father and also being in the Army. Like, love you, Dad, but my dad failing was how he taught. Like you screwed up, you learned the next time.
Absolutely.
Being in the Army, every day in the Army, you failed at something, but yet when you came back the next day, you learned about that failure, and that was a success. You know, it's you didn't get anybody killed, nobody died, good training event, high five, everybody go. But you know, in today's society, I think that there's no emphasis on failing. Like you have to teach your kids that failure is a good thing because you learn from it.
So,
if you learn from it. The problem is there are not enough people who don't learn from it, and they continue to go through that race that, you know, they're on that little rat on the wheel, right? So you have to be able to learn from it in order to look at it as a success. Right?
I did not have that experience with failure. For me, failure was not an option. Not because it was my parents that I learned that from my parents. No. It was because my mother was dead. My father did the best he could. Mm-hmm. My father had a mental breakdown after my mother died because it was sudden. She was only 46. Mm-hmm. And I ended up living with my sister, her husband, and their children. And a lot I took on myself of I need to be a success, however I define that for myself, because what else am I going to do? But she's got her own family to take care of.
But at the same time, there's a lesson that was learned there. Your father, without teaching you it, taught you resiliency, taught you how to bounce back and like, hey, no matter what, this has to get done. We're going to go.
You know what the bigger lesson was that he taught me? Mental health. Because my father went into a downward spiral. I can remember when we were mourning my mother sitting Shiva after she passed, and he was in the garage, drunk off his ass, in a blind, drunken stupor, because he couldn't handle it. And it was right after that, after the week of sitting Shiva, had to figure out what to do. I went to school for one day in New Jersey, and my sister decided, no, you're going to come up here to New York. And I moved to New York. My father stayed in Jersey. He took a sabbatical. He took a year off from teaching to try to get his life put together. And we would have the most in-depth conversations about how he had to fight back to live again. And he did it by journaling. He wrote poetry about my mother. He wrote, he would just write about her and his emotions and how to, I would love to get it published because it is so profound to read it. He didn't influence me to focus on mental health. It was when I was an adult, after having Amanda, that I sat there one day and was like, I couldn't imagine losing somebody that I loved that much. And at this stage in life, at 50 plus years of age, I can now appreciate even more so, because that's how old he was when my mother passed, 51. I can't imagine what it would be like losing him. And so those little nuggets that I don't really think about are the things that pop up like, oh, that was my dad.
Right.
And even my sister, though, we talk about grandparents and parents. My sister and I are 10 and a half years apart. She taught me how to kick ass and keep taking names because she has, as we know, 10 children. I was there. I know. And can you imagine 10 kids now and her husband and her sister, her kid sister, that what am I supposed to do with her? And I went through my own evolution in dealing with where do I fit in? Mm-hmm. Do your parents teach you where you fit in a society that expects you to have?
No. My parents never taught me how to fit in. That was the thing. And my dad, we've had this conversation before. He's like, he always said, no matter what, my idea of raising children was to make sure that you were that you were your own individual, that you didn't conform. Now, the fact that I joined the Army and I stuck with it for 20 years to this day, I'll tell you, that's the most he's ever seen me accomplish at one time. So it's like, all right, cool, thanks, Dad, appreciate you, love you.
Oh my goodness.
Father Pesce, you're kind of quiet over there.
Well, I'm
writing.
I'm writing some
I
notes.
know.
Right.
This is
Pesce writing notes.
It amazes me. We've been friends for a long time. We've done podcasts, but one of bullets I wrote down is that, I learned something from you guys every time we're together that we didn't know before. Mm-hmm. So it's like an awakening, right? It's like
awakening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's that would be another different podcast that we talk about is the awakenings.
right.
Social behavior, how it grows over friendship and time. That how come I didn't know that? Right? It's the same thing with the family, right? Mm-hmm. We talk about our foundation of our parents and grandparents and what we've become today, but those weren't our only foundations. We've made our own foundations through friends, relations, and things like that. But the basis for who we are today, I feel, and you could disagree with me, mm-hmm. was born from those foundations, whether we got a lot of it or a little of it, whether we lost a parent early, we didn't have the full extent. I don't know if I would have been the same person if my mom lived into my teens. I may not, because a lot of who I am comes from my sister, my siblings.
Yeah, right.
So and that's the other thing that we should have really put on this topic is it's not parents and it's parents, grandparents, siblings, and they played an important role. I know my sister did.
Right.
Who's older, you or your sister?
My sister's 2 years older.
2 years older.
Yeah, because your sister became
my mother,
not your mother, right? It wasn't just your sister; she's mm-hmm. your mother too. Yeah, and even when I see the dynamics of the two of them together, it's amazing because she loves her baby brother. I mean, it is the most beautiful relationship I've ever seen.
I love that,
and she truly takes on that role constantly. She told me when she says, "Now I don't have to worry."
Are you the oldest?
No, I'm the baby.
You're the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that same...
complete opposite relationship?
So I found that interesting because I think, how would you describe your relationship with your sibling?
Better now. Yeah, we had a very big come to Jesus meeting, him and I, one time, about what had happened prior to 2013. Mm-hmm. And him and his wife, was very hard to understand what I was going through. Mm-hmm. And when they started to get a grasp on it, they're like, oh, it's not a joke what Chris has gone through, put himself through. I think, now it's a lot better. We're more, we communicate, not like, every day. We just communicate every so often, even though he lives 45 minutes down the road. But we're complete opposites. Like mm-hmm. we are total. If you met my brother and engaged with his family and us, you'd be like, there is no way you two are related, none at all. But yeah, here we are. The other thing too is, come to find out, he went through something, and we got through that too with him. Mm-hmm. Him and I, we talked about that, and so it was. Yeah, it's a lot better.
But those dynamics, I think, are interesting. Like you and your sibling, mm-hmm. you and yours, Carmine and his sister. Who I don't want to use the word envy. I have so much admiration is the word I want to use. Right. Admiration for that dynamic, because my sister also took the role of mother, and she and I are very different. Physically, we're very different. Mentally, she's.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
brilliant. My sister is brilliant. And there are so many things about her that I wanted to be like, and found that I could not do that. And we don't speak every day. Hell, we don't speak every week or every month for that matter. And our form of communication is literally quick messages back and forth. Our aunts and uncles used to joke, oh, it's like the sun and the moon. Two ships passing in the night. You just don't have that stuff in common.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that because you don't have that constant communication that there wasn't an impact from that person. I like to think that at the end of the day, we all can learn from our parents.
Right.
And evolve. Evolution
Absolutely.
is key.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think there was a time when the roles were reversed when you started teaching your parents something?
Oh, absolutely. Every day.
You mean aside from teaching?
I think I do teach my parents. What, they look at me and they're like, I don't know if they even thought that I would be who I am. Mm-hmm. I think that when they look at me, I think they thought it would be more my brother than it would have been me. Being the business owner, being they never thought I would be, I think, a single mother for many years. And then, of course, now I'm remarried. I mean, so the things I've kind of gone through, I don't think they actually expected me to go through. But at the same time, I don't think they thought I was going to be as elevated and evolved. Yeah. The author, the podcast, the business owner. I am 100% my dad.
I kind of feel that way with me too. Like, I don't think my parents ever. Well, I know for a fact my parents have told me, like, they never thought that I would have ever spent 20 years in the Army.
Yeah.
And loved every single moment of it, no matter what.
Yeah. So. And even for me going in the military, that was not what my mom and dad expected, especially my mom. She was like, what? So.
Especially the choice that you made in the military.
Yeah.
Navy on a sub.
Yeah. Not a sub, but a submarine tender. But,
all right.
Shooting weapons,
Girl,
doing things that, so I did things completely opposite than what I think either one of them expected. I think I hit my mom harder than I hit my dad. And even when I wanted to come back home, my dad's like, nope, you made the choice. You're staying. Finish it out. Yep. Just like you say, hey, you made the decision. You're going. And I cry every day. Be like, I want to come back home. Nope. You are staying. And so he was the one that made me the tough, the tougher one. And so I stuck it through. I did what I needed to do. And I was that more the harder person to learn to just keep driving and keep going. And I even sometimes surprise myself on some of the things that I've done because I just never thought it was going to be me. Never in a million years that I thought I would go this direction in my life that I'm going. I always thought it would be my brother. Now, my brother is absolutely, in my opinion, smarter than I am and more brilliant than I am. But I think he limits himself sometimes. But I think he's a great person. I think sometimes it's the fear of not knowing how to push it out, but he's done great in what he wants to do in his life. I just push harder at what I want to do. So, and it's just, I just don't know when to stop. I think it's for me.
I think but that portion right there is I'm the same way. And I think that's like what we learn, basic training, AIT, being in the military. You don't stop until it's done.
Well, and he was in the military too. He just didn't stay in as long as I did. Yeah, we both went in the military. I still didn't stay in longer. It just wasn't for him, and but it's so funny because I was following his footsteps, right? Yeah. So, but he didn't stay in as many years as I did. He did 4, and I did 14. But it was just I'm following my big brother type scenario, and we're just two different people, opposite ends of the spectrum, so to speak, but. It just you start to think about some of those things like we don't speak every day, but we're fine. You got the chance to meet my brother when he was here, and it's just one of those things where it's like, wow, how do you get two people from the same household be so different, right? It's just
come over to my house.
It's just
I'll show you a set.
You just be like, wow, these two are really different. But I just do think that I just took some of the things that I think they thought he would have had versus me being the opposite, in that perspective. So,
do you think you influenced your sister?
It's a great question. I hope I did. I just don't know what those things really are.
I'm there with you on that.
if I had to reach, and that's something I would, when she listens to this podcast, I'll ask her for her thoughts. But I think she had certain expectations of me when we were growing up that made her open her mind as to, hey, we are different, and it's okay, and as long as I didn't kill anybody, it was a good thing. But I mean, I recall certain things where she was very disappointed in a couple of things that I did, and I love her for that. But she realized that those things that I did that she got disappointed in were not, total catastrophes. They really didn't define who I was.
So I remember when I joined the fire department, and I came home, and my father looked at me and was like, "You did what?" He's like, "Why is my child running into a burning building? Like, why not?" Mm-hmm. And I will never forget this conversation. He's like, "It's the same reason I didn't want you joining the military." My father was in the Korean War and all that good stuff. And, when I think about, did I influence my father? And I would like to say yes, that I gave him an opportunity to think outside of the box that he had built his life around from when he was born. Like, he was born in 1936, and very different morals, very different mentality toward things than when I was growing up. And when I think about my sister, and again, I disappointed her, I'm sure, quite a bit. Made some life choices that a little less than optimal, we'll call it. But I'm still standing. I didn't kill anyone. Never served a day in jail. And all at the end of the day, loved family. You can't. What was that look for? No jail time.
Right.
But we make these choices and we make these decisions where it's what do we want to take from our parents? What do we want to give to our children? What do we want our children to give to their children? And it's a lot. I mean, it's a pretty deep discussion. And to the point about the influencers, that sense of entitlement. There was never a you're entitled to. You will earn what you get, or you won't get it. And I think as we evolved, we kind of, and as society's changed so much with social media and the internet. I'll be the first one to say, as much as we require, and I use the internet, because I do. I am a Google and ChatGPT fiend. It's caused so much issue in society. It's set that level of entitlement. It's changed, unfortunately, not all for the good, the way we perceive other people. It has changed how I look at other people's values. That scares me about something. So when we are long gone from this earth and have go into our next stage of existence, and what are our children going to say about us? Did we teach them what? I don't know.
Well, like I said, at the end of the day, I mean, we set a foundation. We can only hope and pray that foundation we set for them is valued and utilized the way that they think is best. But we're not their only outside influence.
100%.
So you can only balance them the best that you can. And when I look at my child, I think he's doing exactly what I expect him to, and hoped and prayed for. The thing for me was, all I ever want my child to do is to do what I asked him to do. He's done everything I asked him to do, but then now I need for him to do is continue to fly.
That's it.
I need for him to continue to have his life, because he can't be me.
Right. And you don't want him to be.
I've done everything I'm supposed to do, but now it's time for him to continue to fly. Period. Okay.
Ooh.
And
Father?
I think it's time for words from Father Pesce.
Oh, great. Well, first of all, I think this was an excellent, great discussion. We came across a lot of different scenarios that were covered. Excellent stories by all. We talked about things we'd never discussed before when we were even together socially, or on any of the previous podcasts. Our parents, our grandparents may not have been our only teachers, but they still set the foundation of what we are today, or what we, or what we have for the future. We talked about our siblings at the later end of this podcast, which were, I think, a significant role in who we are today. And I'll call them my foundation partners. Parents, grandparents, siblings are foundation partners. Those people better prepared me for the real world and the person that I am today. What you learn from your parents, grandparents, and siblings doesn't always relate to how you act today, because there are other influencers there, the people your friends, your school chums, the people you still deal with today over very, very, very many years. Work relationships that I have for the past 35 years still continue, so those people influence you as well, and they continue to make you learn and grow. So it's not just related to the topic as we talked about. One of the things is hard work and ethics are the two most important things that I learned, and I hopefully that they're the things you learned as well. And that's only after be loving, because I think without it, you can't be open and honest to the person you are today. Be loving, be stupid at times, without hurting anyone, because stupidity sometimes does hurt people. But you can only learn these things from our past, and teach you what you should or shouldn't do. Be yourself. In today's world, this is the most difficult thing to do, but be yourself. Don't acquiesce to what other influencers or people say you should be doing. That's the most important thing, I think, out of this discussion that we had today. Even though we look back at our parents and our grandparents, whether they had a degree or not, it is not important. They were all educators to us and to the persons we've become today. And with that, the challenge today in being open and honest and being loving is how we react to what's happening today in our society, and especially to our, LGBTA friends, acquaintances. It's a difficult thing, and I think that everyone at this table is open and to be that loving person to everyone, and not be restricted by some of the things that parents and grandparents could have taught us and we carry forward. That's my words of wisdom today.
Salud.
All right. Great words of wisdom from Father Pesce this evening. So, again, I'd like to thank you all for coming on tonight. You guys are always a wonderful guest to have and wonderful partners to have. And, of course, to be a guest on the show, reach out to me, Kimberly, WSBILC@gmail.com. Want more of Unveiled podcast shows? Monetary donations to support the podcast are now accepted on Cash App, PayPal, Good Pods Tip Jar, or go to the website. Again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We will be back next month on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Thursday evening at 7 p.m. once a month. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Bye. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.